Birds here, or grazers. Yeah, okay. All custom or custom grazers. All right, so we're gonna. This one's gonna be a little bit different. We've got a slideshow with each gentleman, but I'm going to pass it down and let you guys introduce yourself, kind of talk a little bit about your operation, and kind of walk us through the slides here a little bit. First one is Riley Sides.
All right, I'm Riley Sides. What? Oh, you're good. I am Riley Sides. I farm with my grandpa, dad, brother, mom, everybody. I'm in eastern Norton County. I'm Michael's neighbor on our crop ground, but I'm our main farm and pastures are about 15 miles south of Michael's house, which I say we live in two different environments because he's up by the state line and we catch way more rain. Except for this year, we're a little ahead, but a little ahead of nothing is not very much. So, we're cow-calf, we retain all our own heifers, we grow wheat, is kind of an insured cover crop, essentially. Forage crop, corn, and then we're at the Milo. So, maybe just jump into it, or we can pass it around. Okay. Anyways, so this is what I was doing yesterday. It was a nice day for it, about 100 degrees, no wind, high humidity. But, so, everybody, Brace talks about the economics of Milo. Well, this is what we're gonna do with ours. It's a little ugly, but we are using it as a forage crop. We're gonna graze it. We actually hauled cows to it this morning before we head down here. So we'll graze it. I expect we get probably 50 to 70 pair days an acre, which depending on how you crunch that, the blue sky, that you're resting your pastures and all this, I'd say it's gonna be between this and our cover forage crops are gonna be the most profitable acres on our farm this year. So next slide, please. This is what we grew a tremendous amount of this year. We rotated quite a bit of crop ground out of cash crops, and we have been grazing 4 species summer mix. So, yep, you're good. And we're, like Michael said, we're sub 10 inches of moisture this year, but it still isn't as bad as 2023 when that was our corn crop we were grazing. We had almost every acre 100% hailed out, and we spent 7 months grazing hailed out corn. So that's the introduction into how we graze cropland. And now, next one please, our pastures, perennial pastures. We're ultra high density grazing these, non-selectively, 1 move a day. That is essentially an old farm field that turned CRP that now is just a pasture. Last year we averaged 85 pair days an acre, grazing from mid-April to mid-September. Calves getting 1.8 or so, 1.9, a little below what they would at set stock, but if you roll it like you would a crop field, your profit per acre, we were miles ahead. And that's what it looks like when we're done with it after a day, on a good day. Not every time it looks like that, but we're looking at taking 80% off of it or so, and then we're trampling, or we're trying to get to the root crowns because then we get tillers and more leaf, less stem, higher quality forage recovery next year. We'll come back to that in a year or 2. So it's like a Super Bowl. Each acre or so, our perennial crop or perennial pastures is like a 1-day deal. We go in, we go through, and we rotate. There's just some dung beetles cleaning up our manure. I had a neighbor down last summer, and that was the first thing he said was, I hardly noticed any of the manure in the paddocks from 40 days ago. We had a little rain that helped, but we had insects and biology moving our nutrients, break down our manure, because we also don't pour on or anything. So, that's what. Is there a caption on that one? Okay. No, never mind, I remember this one. Okay, that is, this was grazed last, end of July. We've had less than 10 inches of rain last 365 days, 10 or 11. But that is the recovery from what was 5 foot tall, 4 foot tall Indian grass and some other prairie species. But look at the tillering action, look at the leaves to stem ratios. We improved that, made it more productive. It won't be as tall, but we will get more cow days per acre out of it and better gains. And with that, we get an increase in diversity. It was kind of a monoculture of warm season prairie grasses, but now we have some forbs and then there's yellow sweet clover, which is high protein and good gains and good fleshing condition on the cattle. So, next. And that is what we do with bottoms, high fertility bottoms that have been fed or nutrients washed down. If you can't tell, there's 6 foot, 7 foot tall wild marijuana there, and that's what it looks like after a day that we went through it. Cows eat them if you make it and they get a taste for it, and they will slick off and they will what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways. No, yeah, we don't sell CBD beef, by the way. But we have better performance from our animals, even though we are pushing them this hard, when we get that diversity of weeds. So, and that's what it looks like when you lock 100 pairs in less than an acre and you get 2 inches of rain. This is kind of a strategic move because this was predominantly, well, most of it, minus that little hill, was predominantly all weeds, just like that other bottom was. But my grandpa thought I ruined the pasture. Man, he said, I took care of that field for 40 years and you ruined it. I told him, it's not a crop field, it'll bounce back. What are you gonna do with it? I said, I'm just gonna leave it. That is the recovery. It's not the same exact spot, but I'm within 50 feet of that. Previous picture of the mudded in place was like the 10th of May last year. We grazed this middle of June of this year, and that's the recovery since then. And we've had taken a whole harvest off of this just on the recovery in less than 370 days, and that's now the recovery from a second graze after we mudded it in. Well, one graze after we mudded it in, but we had a field day in Almena last year, and you could notice when we took the people to this spot, it was darker green than any other grass. You had just like this football field of dark green where the cattle had turned over that, which I'm not saying you should do that. You definitely should do that on the side hill, the bottoms. Anyways, but the plant spacing got hurt because we did some damage, but I mean, you leave it, you rest it, impact, you leave. And then there's an example of a place, probably along our polywire. We use polywire and step-in posts. And underneath it, once the plants get lignified where they can't walk on top of it because it's underneath the fence, and it's not good enough to graze to the ground, they'll leave it, which I say is our snow fence because it's taller than the rest of the pasture. But this is the recovery. It just shoots leaves off the stems. I mean, it doesn't look like what I just showed you. Next picture. Here's like 10 feet from it. And this is from a post from Jim Elizondo, which is a big guy in the total grazing. He says, plant growth points are close to the ground. They need sunlight to thrive. Thatch on top shades those points and leads to more plant spacing. Green leaves create energy through photosynthesis, while stems consume energy by respiration. We need leafy pastures with close plant spacing. So we are not going to graze. We didn't graze that this year because we are in D3 drought. That it's high quality, but we're looking to build long-term soil carbon and humus, so we will rest that, and so that we get the root exudates from a full season of rest. No notes on that one. Okay. That's just some recovery, I believe. No, that is actually that field. Yeah, anyways, you can see the plant spacing is not as good as the other ones because we did some damage, but the rest of it looks fine. Anyways, that's a different part of it. We can skip that.
Oh, this? Okay. You want me to go past all of them?
Yeah, because I just talked about, it was just an add-in on what kind of animals that we were using, adapted genetics to get the performance in this. So we can come back to that later.
Okay, you just want background?
Introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about what your
Okay.
operation is.
Take an apple.
Yeah. My name's Brent Walker, farm in northwest part of Jewell County, diversified row crop operation with primarily cow-calf animal production. Currently have done stalkers in the past on grazed full season cover crops that we've taken out of row crop production to help build soil organic matter and just to help provide more revenue as opposed to a grain crop. We're big on rotational grazing. We're not intensive like Riley is, but we're just trying to rotate as much as we can. And our biggest issue in our area is getting the pastures kind of rejuvenated and removing woody species on the pastures. And we're trying to do that by mechanical means and prescribed fire to help mitigate that problem. So I'll just leave it simple as that for now.
Sounds good. And then Calvin, introduce yourself, and I think you've got a slideshow also to share. All right.
I'm Calvin Adams. Next week I'm 89. Now, I grew up on a farm here in southeast Mitchell County, went to K-State, got a degree in neuroscience, went into academia, got sick and tired of living in the city, so I came back to my home of origin. So starting about 20 some years ago, I took over the farm, and then I decided it wasn't very big. I could buy more land, or I could more intensively farm what I had. So I went to Jim Garish's grazing schools in Missouri, and then I worked with Dwayne Rice, a range management specialist, when he was in Lincoln. They taught me the basics of what I'm doing. So what I want to do is describe how an old fart who hasn't raised a bushel of wheat, beans, corn, or milo in 25 years, how he survives with a system called management intensive grazing. Okay? First slide. Now, you're going to have to turn the lights down. Can we? Can you see there that there are a number of paddocks? All right? That's one of the systems. All right? But note that each one of those paddocks is surrounded, is centered around a tank. If you don't have water, you've got more ground. So I dug wells, laid pipe, and set tanks. Okay? That's what and that's another one of my systems. And again, do you have a pointer?
Well, yes.
Hold on a minute. Jennifer, Let me get things organized here. Jennifer, what am I doing here?
Well, it kind of timed us out. Let me get it restarted.
She's got to restart. You're good. Just hang on for a minute here.
Okay,
I'll move you to the slide you were on.
go.
Okay,
What I want to point out, now, I want to
all right.
point out,
I think you're
what's the
good.
pointer?
Yep, you're hitting the wrong button. We want this one, right?
Up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one with the red dash.
Not the arrows, the red dash. Yep, you got it.
Well, where is it?
There, right in the middle.
Okay. There's 12 paddocks in this system, and 4 in this system. But what the point of it is that here, here, and over here is a tank. Each tank serves 4 paddocks. Okay? So the way it goes.
You want me to move a slide? I
Yeah,
can
next
move
one.
the slides. I'll do the slides. You just
Typical view of what it looks like. Cows. Back then, I could not get tire tanks. You had to go to the high country. So I used cement tanks. Okay? Next slide. That's another picture of a slide. Okay, next. I'm a custom grazer. So I bring cattle in the spring, go through August, they go home, and another cat comes in, and would fall green up in the fall till December. So that these cattle are not familiar with rotational grazing. You solve that with lead cows. Okay, and this is one of my, that's old Sugar. She's a longhorn. She's my best lead cow, but she's ornery as the day is long. She knows how to open gates with her horns. Okay? All right. Next slide. Go ahead. That's the old part. I use a cow dog who's trained. Okay, next slide. Okay. How do I know how well I'm doing? I use 2 techniques. One is exclusion chambers, and the other is transects. Does everybody know what a transect is? Someplace out there in your pasture, you put down a marker. And then you walk 100 steps and put down another marker. And then you walk that each year in August. You take a step, and what's at the end of your toe? You record the species. And then you take another step. Okay? So you get 100 samples of your grass at each transect each year. Okay? I'll tell you more about that in a minute. No, back up. That's how you do a transect. Okay, next slide. No. What? I want to say. Can you read that? That says big blue, little blue, Indian, switch, side oats, buffalo. And what you do is you count it. And what that said was 95% of the time, one of the 5 decreasers was at a toe. Those are what we call the decreasers. They produce large forage. They stay. They have been there for 20 years. And I'll talk about the last 2 years in a bit. Next slide. Now, that's simply an exclusion chamber. Okay, it's a cattle panel that's anchored in there. And so in August, then I roll that panel away, and I have a frame that's 2 square feet, and I clip the grass inside of that 2 square foot. I take it and I air dry it, and measure it, and use a formula, and get pounds per acre. Okay, next slide. Now you can't see that. I'm sorry. You have to rely on me. When we started back in 2000, my grass was routinely producing 2,000 to 2,500 pounds of forage per year. That number up there for the warm season is 5,280 pounds forage per year. And on the cool season, it's about 4,000 pounds per acre per day, per year. Okay? Note that that's a little different than when we started. I increased my production from about 2,000 pounds per acre to 5,000 pounds per acre. That's the payoff from doing this. Okay? Next slide. That's just something that says I've been recognized for what I do. Next slide. An editorial comment. I strongly recommend and utilize gentle handling. The old saying is they pull easier than they push. What you do is you get a bucket and you put some cubes in it and you go out. Cattle like cubes. So particularly my lead cows know what that is. And so we go from paddock to paddock to paddock. Very simply, I do it mostly by myself, and that's how it goes. Next slide. Comment that a system I'm just developing this year, we're now using tire tanks. They're better than the cement. But back whenever I set this up 20 years ago, I didn't have access to tire tanks. I used a cement. The fellows worried about the previous group about drought and maintaining. And the same goes here. Those production figures were stable for 25 years until starting 3 years ago when drought set in. I'm just now in the process of measuring my grass this year. My production is down 50%. My stocking rate, how many cows I put in, is down by 50%. A bit of that is armyworms invading my brome, but mostly it's simply drought. My drought plan is not written. It is based on 3 things. One, I look at the long-range prediction at the Climate Prediction Center. I go out with a probe and look at my moisture profile and my pastures. And 3, I find out how many cattle my customers want to graze. Mother Nature can be a real bitch. And that's been so the last 3 years. And I don't know what you can do about that, except I do not control the spigot of how much rain I get, but what I can do is control what happens once that drop of rain hits the ground. My ponds are always the last to fill. The water stays where it fell. As I say, next week I'm 89 years old. I don't intend to quit, but I'm rethinking my process and hope we can continue. But it's conservation, it's gentle handling, and it's just good management. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. What kind of questions do we have? Mike?
How many?
Who are we talking? Calvin? Questions is coming for you.
Normal year, not drought year, normal year, how many head do you put in a paddock?
Say that again,
How
Mike.
many paddocks?
How many head of cattle in a paddock?
The question is, how many head of cattle do I put in each paddock?
Yeah.
The answer is, it all depends.
No, I mean prior to the drought years, in good times.
Probably when you get stock density.
Yeah, what's your stocking
I can't answer that with one answer.
Regular stocking rate used to rotate them.
I walk my paddocks. I look at my grass. I change paddocks whenever the grass is 3 or 4 inches tall.
Got it.
Okay? Now, maybe you have an answer to that, but I don't. My answer to that is all depends. But what it is half the number, not per paddock, but total.
Yeah,
I'm only stocking half as many cattle.
got it.
And that's the way it is. You got a better answer?
I don't live here.
He just wishes he had that much grass.
Any questions? I've got a few here if you guys want me to dive in. You hit it, Calvin. Without water, you have nothing. How do you guys handle your water situation? And I'll let you.
You want me to take it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We are back walking. So on daily moves here, we are back walking 4 to 5 days back over those same grazed paddocks. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, because most of our places are fairly square and we have a water source, either a spring or a hydrant. So we are using a sacrifice lane that's going to be ugly by the time that we're done using a sacrifice lane. That's looking at less than an acre, say out of a quarter. We're going about 4 to 5 days long, and then we are turning around and coming back. And if, depending on rain, if we get a big rain and I don't want them to track up 4 or 5 days long, when they're back walking that long, I will just start a new one. I will make, everything's on poly, but not permanent fencing. Permanent fencing is only on the outside perimeter fence. And so we are able to just, when it rains, we make them wider, and we won't get as high harvest efficiency, but we're trying to not mud in every paddock like that one if we get a big rain. But so we're back walking to, thankfully, There's water infrastructure probably for every at least 150, 200 acres for me that I can graze from one water source. Does that answer your question?
What's the infrastructure? Like, tell us what it is.
So we're blessed with the center of a majority of our grass is a spring that has run for the last 100 years. So we've been, last 2 years, even as dry times, it's been running, and we've been watering 100 head a day for most of the year because I don't want to do much more at that current pace at our drought levels. And what was the other part of the question?
Just basically what the infrastructure is.
Okay, other than that, it's just tanks, plastic tanks with either a solar well or electricity. Some of those times I'm making a mineral water using a brine bag with either Redmond's conditioner or sea salt to aid my cows because I'm pushing them so hard, but we don't supplement mineral. They get Kansas sea fine salt and a Redmond's conditioner mixed in it, and they're expected to just figure it out. And we cold, especially now's a good time to clean up your cow herds. The ones that are full of flies, the ones that are failing behind, they're overpriced and you can upgrade somewhere.
Okay, so ours is kind of a progression. When I came back in 2010 and started farming full-time, pretty well was stocked, or season-long stocking rate on every pasture. And so a bunch of little pastures just broke up. And so I've transitioned that into bigger groups of cows or pairs in the summertime rotating through. So we're having to put in pipelines with tanks and solar wells and drill wells and do stuff like that, and running above ground pipelines with poly tanks, thousands of feet if need be. Last year was kind of a struggle. Most of our ponds went dry, which we relied probably 50% of our water on pond, and then the rest on fresh water out of wells and stuff. But we still, with the drought last year, basically all our ponds went dry, and then we were putting water lines everywhere on top of the ground and pumping out of solar wells to still be able to use our rotation. And then we were still having to back graze them, or let them come back into some water sources after we've been through some spots. But yeah, that's kind of water sources like that. And then when we were doing stalkers on cover crop, we were running off of wells on most of that. We were doing a little bit of solar, but then we were doing 1-inch HDPE pipe on top of the ground, and then I had them 300-foot sections with cam locks in it, and so every 300 foot I could put a set of tanks. And then we were doing anywhere from daily moves to 2 to 3 day moves, and so then we were just inching that along depending on how the grazing was going with those calves, and then moving them tanks every 300 foot, and then putting a back fence up every 300 foot on that. So that's kind of what we've done in the past and are currently doing.
I didn't answer your question very well. You asked how many I put in.
Yeah.
The number per paddock hasn't changed. It's the number of total cows that I have to graze. Okay? And I would further comment that I have maintained my cool season, which is brome, with a fertilizer program that centers around manure. Every third year, I spread 10 tons of manure. The second year, I'll put on 30 pounds of N. And the third year, 50 pounds of N. I do soil testing on a regular basis. My soils are healthy, but importantly, my organic matter, where I'm using the manure, now runs between 4 and 5%. That's healthy.
I'll let let you just hang on to that. When, so moving cattle, no one likes to spend a whole lot of time out there moving cattle, I don't think, right? I mean, you prefer to make that as easy as possible. Kind of tell us, each of you guys, what your strategy is on how frequently you move, how you make those decisions, and just how you manage that to make it as easy as possible on your herd and on you.
I have a cow dog, but I don't use him much because they don't know him. Normally, I work 3 days a week. I start at 6 o'clock in the morning. I will work a couple of hours. The lead cows are central. You rattle a bucket, and after you change paddocks a couple of times, all of them know, oh yeah, here we come. So it's not a difficult and long time process. You gently handle them, you reward their behavior, and they become docile.
So your question is how we move in paddocks?
Yeah, how do you decide?
I make them, I adjust it based off of how they did the previous day, whether the quality of the previous day's paddock, temperature, I mean, everything's kind of a factor. But they figure it out, it doesn't take long. Call them, your older cows tend to figure it out. I'm only moving, I mean, some of these times I'm grazing less, 85 to 120 pairs an acre, so they're not too spread out. We're looking at 130 to 190,000 pounds per acre, so they're all, at that point, sitting there waiting once they see you. My grandpa always goes, the cows are hungry, they're bawling. I said, well, they know it's feeding time. So.
Well, when I was doing the grazing of the cover crops, we were doing daily moves, and so just rotational grazing through that with poly wire and stuff. So we were doing like 8-mile strips. We'd take like an 80 and split it down the middle lengthwise, and so we only had 1/8 mile to roll poly wire back and forth, and doing daily moves in that. And our warm season grasses, our native grasses, we're doing, probably the shortest is 2-week moves. A lot of stuff is 30 days, every 30 days. We kind of got a system, just the amount of paddocks we got, and our deal's more so labor. It's just me, so by the time I go around fences and do farming and do everything, yeah. And then I've got 4 kids, and so now they're in sports and everything, so my management intensiveness is not as much as it used to be when I was 15 years younger.
Any questions? We got one?
So how long did it take the cows when you put the hormone to adjust to flies?
Me?
Yeah.
So
What was the question?
how long did it take our cows to get used to not being wormed and flied? So I've been home 3.5 years. I went to school for 2.5. Said, nah, I didn't learn anything, even in ag school. But Dad never, all that grass that you saw, that was taken care of before I got home. It wasn't something I had to rehabilitate. It's just same with the cows. It was our own genetics have been on the place, which they say the best genetics you can buy are probably standing on the ranch. Anyways, but so I don't remember Dad very sparingly if we caught cows and it was a bad summer they poured. Other than that, it was just figure it out. So I didn't go through the transition that some people do where they've been poured, that pastures had insecticide out there for however long, decades, that I had to rehabilitate all that. I came home to a good system, and I just am amplifying it. Like our county says we probably have 3 times too many cows for as much pastures we have, maybe more. because when I came home, I just wanted to run cows. I helped farm, but I didn't see any money in the farming side. I mean, that was 2021, and it was in my eyes, I saw the cattle market coming, so that's where I hopped in. And I can't afford to buy land, so the land that Grandpa rents to me, I just decided we're gonna maximize it. We do rest at least half of our grass a year. We don't take all of it all the time. This year we're looking at probably only, we rest probably 60% or more in a borderline D3 drought by utilizing this, and a lot of forage crops that wouldn't have been cash flowed as cash crops, but this year, due to drought and prices, but it'll probably be our most profitable acres. So, but we don't graze our cropland or cover crops like we do our pastures. They are take the best, leave the rest kind of deal. We leave residue because it's usually going to be followed by, like Michael said, corn crop, those big summer annuals.
How do the rest of you guys manage your flies?
I have two cardinal rules, cattle that come in. One, wild and incorrigible cattle go home the next day at your expense. I just won't fool with the wild. And second is, when my grass runs out, your cattle go home. You have 2 weeks. I will not overgraze. That's their problem, not mine.
Brett, how about you with
Flies,
and
so
worms, etc.?
used to be,
It's on.
okay. So using like a Senegar and the mineral program, and it's been really effective for us for several years. We are starting to battle. I've got one pasture this year with the amount of rainfall we've had. Seems like when you get abundance amount of rain, the insects and everything just thrive. And so, it's probably been at least 5 years now since I've had to spray cows. And so this last week I went to spraying cows to limit the fly load because we were having terrible fly problems, water and stuff. So went to doing that, but just mainly trying to do it kind of through some more natural type stuff through the mineral and stuff. So
Jennifer, is my slideshow up? So, sorry, didn't catch you. So another way we're looking to battle the flies, that cow picture. So anyways, we're Red Angus based. That's the base of our cow herd. But when I came home, I started, I didn't tell Dad, but I think he did AI, but I didn't tell him what was in it. The semen tank. He didn't know this year either. So Red Angus base, that's a cow we've kept a few bulls out of. It takes a different cow to handle this style. Smaller frame, deep, not super high milk, efficient cows, big guts, capacity. Next one, please. There's proof that I don't just run exotic breeds for my bulls. Anyways, next one. So there's that one's quarter Tarantace, 3/4 Red Angus. Next one. That's a bull calf out of him. Next one. Okay, here we go. These cows are a quarter Mashona, which is an African breed, but they're majority Bos Taurus. They're not Indicus-eared African breeds. They're from Zimbabwe. Johann Ziesman favorite. Anyways, that's a quarter blood. Those are heifers with a calf beside them under a total grazing thing. I have not all of my cows are as pretty as that first Red Angus one. We do have some ugly, tall Red Angus that are struggling in this system, and after these covers they'll be going to town because they're going to weigh up pretty, and I know that I have better stock coming up the next few years out of these adapted genetics to replace these cows. And so they're slicked off, they handle the heat and the flies better, while the rest of our cows were struggling to catch their breath the last 2 days of high humidity, no breeze, upper 90s. I didn't notice them even, they're heat tolerant. So that's another way we're battling our flies. They're slick coated. I haven't had the lice problems in the winter, fly problems in the summer. They're healthier, had a better, that group of cows from that AI first Shona bulls that I've used were the healthiest ones we had in a year that we struggled with health problems in 2023, but all of our other cross stuff had health problems. I think that's probably it. Oh, there is the first bull out of my Tarentace Mashona Red Angus cross. So they do sounds different using an African breed, but if you line them all up together, I don't think you could tell, or the calves really, you can't tell much. But we are seeing better results.
As I told you, I have 2 cardinal rules. Wild and incorrigible cattle go home. Those that stay are handled gently. Okay? I would comment that I have almost no turnover in my customers. They come back year after year. I use high tensile fence with posts that bend and come back. Some of my grass is along the creek. At rut, I always have trouble, but since I've gone to high tensile, I've had almost no problems with breakage of my single wire hot wire.
Any questions? Someone have the last question. All right, I guess we'll give these folks a round of applause. I'll turn it over to Jennifer.